Hi, good evening. Thank you for bearing with us. We've had an adventure and a half today, so we appreciate your patience. I'm Maggie Leininger. Welcome to part 2 of our candidates forum. We'll be interviewing the Morgan Hill City Council District C candidates. Welcome, all of you.
Okay, great. We will now review some more general rules regarding this section of the forum. Part 2 of tonight's forum features candidates running for the Morgan Hill City Council of District C. We will begin the forum with a 1-minute opening statement by each candidate. Then we will have each candidate answer the same 5 questions. After each candidate has been asked a question, the timer will start, indicated by a colored flag as you see on the screen. A green flag tells the candidate that they have 90 seconds to answer the question. A yellow flag tells the candidate that they have 30 seconds left to answer the question. A red flag tells the candidate that they have 10 seconds to answer the question. And finally, a black flag will appear when we are 10 seconds over for that particular question. At this point, the candidate will be muted. After all of the questions have been answered, each candidate will have 1 minute to provide a closing statement. So now we will begin with the opening statements, starting with Mr. Spring.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Right, thank you. I am Rene Spring, council member in the city of Morgan Hill. I've lived in Morgan Hill for over 16 years and always in District C, in the same house we still live in. I work full-time as a program management director for a high-tech company in San Jose, though these days I pretty much work from home like many other guys and many other people, I'd like to say. I'm married, have 3 stepchildren and 3 wonderful grandkids, and I'm daddy to 4 cats, 3 of them rescues, and Olaf, the famous Maine Coon. I have been very much involved ever since I moved to Morgan Hill and the community. I'm an alumni of Leadership Morgan Hill. I have been on the board of Leadership Morgan Hill, as well as the Morgan Hill Community Foundation. I was on the board of the Mirasol of Morgan Hill, HOH, and I volunteered in an endless amount of events over the years. So I'm looking forward to the event tonight, and I thank AAUW for hosting it and also for everything you do throughout the year.
Thank you for your opening statement. We will now ask Mr. Munoz Morris also to state your 1-minute opening statement.
Great, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the Morgan Hill AAUW for hosting this candidate forum. It's been a heck of a year, and it's really nice to have these opportunities to have these conversations. My name is Juan Miguel Munoz Morris, and I'm also running for City Council District C. I'm running because I want to offer voters another choice at the ballot, and one that comes with a clear, forward-thinking plan. I'm lucky enough to count with 2 key endorsements on my candidacy, those being former Mayor Steve Tate, as well as the Morgan Hill Police Officers Association. And I think those 2 endorsements are very telling of the fact that current and former leaders understand that I have a clear plan to guide Morgan Hill forward, to build upon the successes that the city has already had, and to take us to the best possible place moving forward. So I look forward to the conversation today and to answering these questions and to learning more from all of you and hearing from prospective voters. So thank you.
Thank you, both candidates. We will now segue into the questions part of this segment, starting with Mr. Spring. The first question is, give an example of how the Morgan Hill City Council could be more transparent. What will you do to bring this change about? Your time of 90 seconds begins now.
Well, one of the things is it's really taking the residents' input much more into consideration when we discuss major projects. The Morgan Hill Responsible Growth Coalition has that proposed, and I strongly support that. Nowadays, staff very often can approve even a major project without the discussion by the Planning Commission or even by City Council, and the residents have no say. I think that is wrong. I think that is something that we learned needs to change, and I fully support that. Personally, I am probably one of the most approachable council members up until we had COVID-19 kicking in. I've always been meeting residents out there. I volunteered in tons of events or meet residents for a coffee or a lunch or a dinner just to listen and to learn I went to many HOH groups over the past 4 years to go listen, to enjoy their barbecues, and to learn from them and what their concerns are. I am very responsive. I respond to emails that I get and any other requests. I don't ask whether you have a D or R or an I in your political statement. If you're a resident and you need help, I'll help you. And I'm one of the most approachable council members that we have. And I'm proud of that. And that helps me to become a more effective member by listening to our residents. I don't always agree what they say, but listening is important.
Thank you for your response. We will now ask Mr. Munoz-Morris the same question. Please give an example of how the Morgan Hill City Council could be more transparent. What will you do to bring this change about? Your time of 90 seconds begins now.
Thank you for the question. I think my answer is fairly similar. What I've noticed over my tenure in the Planning Commission is that the city, although following the rules for communications, was not being very successful at reaching the people that should be reaching. Traditional ways of mailing out notices aren't as effective nowadays as using social media and etc. So one of the things that I did as a planning commissioner was push for our city staff to have more engagement on social media and to provide more proactive communications, as well as we actually doubled the noticing distance for some of the larger projects that are coming to the Planning Commission. So rather than the traditional 300 feet notice from the property line, we doubled that to 600 feet. Then it's, a lot of the projects have been escalated to being shared kind of citywide through social media. And I want to continue that push. But I think it's important to have that transparency, but we need our leaders to reach out. So one of my grievances as a resident of Morgan Hill over the last few years is that I've wanted more engagement from my city leaders to proactively communicate with me about what's going on and what to expect, in the coming months, etc. I want to provide that proactive reaching out. I don't want to wait for people to just come to me with an issue. I think we need to get ahead of the issues and be proactive rather than reactive.
Thank you for your response. We will now go to the next question. Let's try fixing how this looks. 1 second. But for the second question, we will begin with, again, Mr. Munoz-Morris. And the question is, tell us about the demographics of your district. How do you or how are you planning to communicate with them? What concerns do these different groups have regarding development in Morgan Hill? Your time of 90 seconds begins now.
Thank you. I must admit that I don't have a thorough understanding of the demographics in our district specifically, but my understanding from walking the district, from just kind of understanding our neighborhoods and the area in our district is that there are plenty of young families with children who are obviously in our school district or they're school age, as well as some older families that are maybe transitioning to kind of more of an empty nest situation. So we have a pretty good breakdown of both more bigger homes kind of up in the hills, as well as more higher density, more affordable kind of housing products closer to our downtown core. So I think it's a pretty good cross section of Morgan Hill in general. And I think what a city council member for District C has to do is, again, just kind of that proactive reaching out, make sure that the district understands, how to get involved, how to get a hold of you, but also what projects, what issues are coming up that we need to keep on our radar. What is kind of the general thinking behind those issues and how are we approaching the solution, or how we're going to move forward from them, and to tailor that communication to the multiple audiences. So that might mean that that you have multiple conversations instead of just one standardized email kind of thing. But you really need to reach our residents and our voters where they are.
Thank you for your response. We will now be asking Mr. Spring the same question. Tell us about the demographics of your district. How do you or how are you planning to communicate with them? What concerns do these different groups have regarding development in Morgan Hill? Your time of 90 seconds begins now.
Well, it's a wonderful district to live in. 4 years ago, I got elected at large, but I've always, for over 16 years, I've lived in District C, right off Hale Yagas in that same area. It's probably one of the older district, a lot of older homes. A lot of our residents have lived in the district for a long, long time, even longer than me. My opponent just moved to the district only 3 years ago, so there's a big difference. I have been very much involved in our neighborhood as a member of the HOH, Mirasol Morgan Hill HOH, for several years, was on that board. That's how you get to know your neighbors. I have firefighters, teachers, doctors, regular moms and pops as neighbors of any ethnicity, a lot of Latinx members, but also people that move to the area, whether they come from Europe, India, or another part of the world. We have a large Latinx community as well in our area with wonderful community leaders, such as Ernesto Gomez and others. And they all stand behind me and they know me. I've been around. I've gone to their events for years, not just during an election campaign. I know the residents. I've seen them. I've been going for walks for years and years and talking to people. They know me. I know them. That's how you get to understand them, if you listen to them, and also if you go and visit them as you walk by. And I've been doing that for many, many years. I know a lot of neighbors.
Thank you. We will now be heading to the third question, starting with Mr. Spring again. And this question asks, how do you think the police should be monitored to verify that they are not performing their job in a biased manner? Your time of 90 seconds begins now.
I'm sorry, can you say the beginning again? Couldn't hear that part.
Yes, absolutely. The question was, how do you think the police should be monitored to verify that they are not performing their jobs in a biased manner? You have 90 seconds.
Well, I think generally they do a good job, and I have several friends in our police department. Even though the association didn't endorse me, can't tell you why, but I still have quite a few friends. I think they do a decent job, but it comes to transparency, and I'm a strong supporter of enhancing diversity and inclusiveness, and that includes the hiring process. And the current hiring process of officers is really kind of a black box to me. It's not quite clear to me how that happens, who's involved. And I think we could improve that and improve transparency, and also put some oversight through responsible residents to really make sure that they meet with our chief and the officers regularly to have an open discussion of what is going well, what is not going well. Even though they try, we do have a police department that I think does a nice job with community policing, but it's not perfect, and it can be improved. And the improvement has to happen with outreach to our minority communities, including the Latinx community. They look at the department often differently than maybe you and I might, and we have to change that. And the change only comes when you really talk to each other and don't avoid each other. I'm more than willing to help with that. I've done that in the past, and we still have some work to do, but generally I do like our police department.
Thank you for your response. We will now be going to the next question, which will be addressed to Mr. Munoz Morris, and the question is, how do you think the police should be monitored to verify that they are not performing their jobs in a biased manner? You have 90 seconds.
Great. Thank you for your question. I think it's a very important question to ask. The short answer to your question is constantly. We need complete transparency, and with that comes complete accountability. This is something that I expressed to Corporal Cullen when I discussed with him my endorsement by the Police Officers Association. It's also something that I discussed with our Chief of Police 2 days ago when I sat down with him for a meeting with Chief Palsgrove to talk about what's going on with our police department. What are the challenges that they're facing? What are the issues that they're seeing kind of growing in our community, and what it is that they need to do their job successfully? I think they all understand, both the department and the association understands that I will stand for nothing less than exemplary service by our elected and appointed officials and our city staff, which includes public safety. And we need to continually make sure that they have the appropriate resources to do the job properly, and that we have follow through when we have incidents happen in our community. Now, I will say that I think we're very lucky to live in our community where we have a very positive public safety presence. I think our police officers feel reassuring when you encounter them. For instance, during the BLM protest, some months ago downtown. I think they do a wonderful job. They have an approach that comes from community policing, and they're moving into what's called the 21st century policing techniques. And I'm going to continually work with them to make sure that we keep them accountable, but that we also keep them well equipped.
Thank you for your response. We will now go to the fourth question, again, starting with Mr. Munoz-Morris. The question is, City Council members have a large amount of information to read and analyze each month, and other meetings besides City Council meetings to attend. How much time can you devote to city business? If an issue is before the City Council and you are unprepared to discuss it, what will you do? You have 90 seconds to answer.
Thank you for that question. I think it's a scenario that I'm actually somewhat quite familiar with, being a planning commissioner and kind of having the same sort of challenges that you just outlined. It is true that sometimes, the staff report is many pages long, and you receive it maybe on Thursday before your Tuesday meeting, or, for the council, obviously a Wednesday meeting. And sometimes it's a really tough ask to get through all of the materials. Some of the things that we can do to prevent kind of those situations. Well, we've already asked staff and encouraged them to provide the materials as early as possible. Sometimes, obviously, that is outside of their capabilities. Some things come in last minute. We receive a lot of public comment via email, especially nowadays. That kind of comes in last minute, so they have to make sure they have to scramble to get us all the information. But to your point, kind of towards the end of the question there, should you get to a position where you're being asked to cast a vote on an item with which you're not fully for which you're not fully informed, the best choice for both a commissioner and a council member is to exercise the right that they have on that day is to motion for a continuance and buy yourself some more time. It also buys the public more time to review those files. Again, the public also wants to read through these, right, and make sure that they understand them. So that's one such way that you can do that when the time that you were allowed it was not enough.
Thank you for your response. We will now ask Mr. Spring the same question. City Council members have a large amount of information to read and analyze each month, alongside other meetings beyond City Council meetings to attend. How much time can you devote to city business? If an issue is before the City Council and you are unprepared to discuss it, what will you do? You have 90 seconds to answer.
I generally think I do a good job of really preparing myself. If I know that we have a council meeting and we have 2 to 3 per month, then I usually block out my Saturday, Sundays, at least large amount of that time, unless there's a family event or something else more important going on. I also have a job, even though I work full time, that gives me a lot of flexibility. I usually start my work hours for my day job as early as 4 or 5 o'clock. I work for a global company. I have teams in India, Europe, China, Taiwan, as well as locally, and there's always someone working. So if I start early, that also allows me to take a break during the day for a council-related assignment or meeting, or to prepare. And preparation includes a meeting with the involved parties as well, to really understand that beyond the 3 to 5 minutes they get during council meeting, what their needs are. I do take that time. I think that is important. Especially when it includes topics that are of great interest to residents. I want to hear from the residents. I want to understand their needs. And I have been doing that throughout the 4 years as council member and as planning commissioner before, where I was 4.5 years commissioner. It takes a lot of time, that's true, and it is a challenge. And once in a while, as Juan Miguel just mentioned, yes, I reserve the right to mention during council meeting that I didn't have enough time to study and I'd like to continue an item. And once in a while we do that, but it continues to be a challenge. Yeah.
Thank you for your response. We have the final question now, starting with Mr. Spring again. The question asks, If Morgan Hill residents don't support distribution centers, should we focus on distribution centers in other locations in town, or should we implement zoning changes that encourage types of development that residents want? And what type of development would this be? You have 90 seconds to answer this question.
Yeah, I'm definitely not in favor of new large distribution fulfillment centers. I don't want to drill too much into details today because we will have a discussion at the council meeting next week on this topic. And as always, we're supposed to go in with a non-biased opinion. So please understand that I'm kind of trying to refrain from answering this too much into details. But yes, we have to look into our zoning code and other code just to make sure that it's a code that applies to the year 2020, 2021 and thereafter, and not the code that is 20, 30 years old, where we didn't have these kinds of businesses yet. We only have a limited amount of industrial land and commercial land, and we really need to make sure that we use that in the best interest of our community and for businesses that are a good fit for our community. Good fit are probably not businesses that only bring a few jobs, but a lot of trucks into our area. I think that we have room for more high-tech businesses, biotech, and green energy business, and so on. A lot of startups could be in our area. They don't have to be up in Cupertino, Morgan Hill, or Mountain View or Palo Alto anymore, since most of them can work from home now. We just need to be a little bit more creative in our thinking, and I think we can do that. But we do need those new businesses, and we have to lure them in our city. That will be a challenge, but I think we can do it.
Thank you for your response. We will now be asking Mr. Munoz Morris the same question. If Morgan Hill residents don't support distribution centers, should we focus on distribution centers in other locations in town, or should we implement zoning changes that encourage types of development that residents want? And what types of development would this be? Your time of 90 seconds begins now.
Great, thanks again. Once again, very, very important question for this election. I have the luxury of being able to speak a little bit more freely since the commission has already made some recommendations for the council on this. And my answer is this: I'm not in favor of large-scale distribution. So in our recommendations already, we've put some things in place to prohibit outright all large-scale distribution and what they call parcel sorting. Both of those are very truck-intensive uses, but we are allowing a lower level of distribution, kind of that last mile that can be done with a delivery van versus a truck. Think of your Amazon Prime, think of your Whole Foods, grocery deliveries, etc. Those we can work with. We can electrify that fleet. Consumers in town, especially now being stuck at home, where our purchases are going online more and more. So we will need some distribution, but obviously not the big truck intensive ones. So we're doing away with that. We're doing away with any distribution facility, we're recommending anyway, that's 200,000 square feet or larger, and that's one or multiple buildings total. So nothing bigger than that. For reference, Shoe Palace is more than double that size. We also put some building heights in place. And we are recommending that any project that can come to the commission that is permitted, those lower level last mile deliveries, have to be reviewed by the public, the commission, and the council before they are approved. It's not an administrative approval. City staff do not get to make a call on their own. We get to review it together.
Thank you for your responses to these questions, candidates. We will now be hearing each of your closing statements. You have 1 minute to speak, starting with Mr. Spring.
Well, again, thank you, AAUW, for all you do and for tonight's event. I love being a council member. I'm completing my first term, and you learn a lot during your first term. And so I really would like now to benefit from what I learned and use that in a second term. That is an important aspect. Also, another important aspect is I have lived in this community for a long time. People know me. I have volunteered and given back to the community for years and years and years. And that is important. People need to know who you are, what you stand for. I'm a strong voice for safe and secure neighborhoods, fiscal sustainability. I'm still a strong supporter of stopping urban sprawl and protect our ag land and open spaces. I'm a strong supporter of animal services and enhancing diversity and inclusiveness. And I'm also a strong proponent of improving services for our LGBTQ community, which I am a member of. I have a long list of endorsements, look them up on my website, a long list of residents that endorse me, great organizations as well, many of them, and also a whole bunch of former and current elected officials from as far as Palo Alto down to Gilroy. And no matter their political, whether they're Republican, Democrats, many of them endorse me. They know they can work with me. They've enjoyed working with me.
We unfortunately need to move on, but our last candidate for this segment of will also have their closing statement, and that's Mr. Munoz Morris. You have 60 seconds to answer your closing statement.
Great. Once again, I want to thank the AAUW for hosting this candidate forum. I really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful opportunity for us to have a good discussion about issues in town. I want voters to know that I'm running with a clear plan to move us forward that is consistent, it's forward thinking, and that is not just supportive of things, but it's actually outlining specific steps that we need to take to kind of usher in a better future for Morgan Hill. I'm reminded of the vision that the AAUW states on their website, which is simply equity for all. That's exactly what I'm looking for Morgan Hill. I want equity in our housing. I want equity in our public space use. I want a better balance between cars and people. And I want our residents to feel equally represented and equally treated by their elected and appointed officials. And I believe that I am that better choice for District C. So I kindly ask for your vote and your support. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you both candidates for answering our questions and for these closing statements. On behalf of the AAUW Morgan Hill branch, we would like to thank all of the candidates who participated in this segment of tonight's forum. We will now have a short break and we'll resume at 8:35 p.m. with our third part of this forum with candidates running for Morgan Hill City Council District A. Thank you all for coming and we will see you soon.